Microphone, yeah.
Boy, I was so loud, I thought I was already on mic, sorry. Since Jerry's not here, I'm going to step in and go ahead and chair this evening. Can you do the call to order?
Yes, I'll take roll call. Jerry Cabasco, absent. Kirsten Erickson,
Here.
Robert Perry. Here. Tracy Smadilla. Nanette Gutenkoff.
Here.
Joe Laporte. Here. Adam Lewinsky. Michelle Hughes.
Here.
Robert Gorski.
Here.
Thank you for coming. 6 commissioners. We have a quorum.
Perfect. And here comes one more.
And I'll make note, Adam Lewinsky is present.
Perfect, thank you, Tony. All right, let's move on from roll call to the approval of the June 27, 2022 meeting notes. Anyone have any comments?
I'll move to approve the minutes if there's no comments. I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Public comment, I don't see anyone. Do we have any public comments that were sent in or anything that we need to review?
We do not.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll move on to number 5 on the agenda, the development site discussions, Tony?
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Erickson. From time to time, we've been doing business park tours, and I had contemplated doing a business park tour tonight. Scott is out of the office this week, but suggested instead of a tour of the business parks we've done a few times, to talk about a tour of development sites. And rather than driving you around in a bus to show you a bunch of corners that are zoned commercial, I thought I would take this opportunity. We don't have a beta tonight, so I'd take the opportunity to detail some of the projects that are in various stages. Of course, a lot of times at these meetings, I'll say something like, we're working with a developer here or a particular business there. A lot of these projects take months or more often than that, years to come to fruition, as you all know. Various stages of development, all the way from somebody just sniffing around different towns or looking for sites, all the way through doing due diligence and soil reports and traffic studies and hiring architects and the whole 9 yards. So what I'm doing tonight, before I launch through talking about various development sites in the village, is harken back for some of you who've been on the EDC for a number of years. We went through about 4 or 5 months 6 or 7 years ago to do a marketing plan. Part of the marketing plan was discussing future development of various sites. I'm going to make note also for the record that Commissioner Smadilla is present. And so to give some of the, I say newer commissioners, maybe with a couple years under your belt, context for this is we had a village-wide vacancy rate at that time that was somewhere in the 25-ish range. We had been coming out of a recession, and a lot of you know the stories about how Dominic's closed and Bartlett Fresh Market closed and a bunch of restaurants closed, and we had a high vacancy rate. It was highest in the downtown at that point. So there was direction from the village board and from the administration at the time. Some of the elected officials were a little bit newer back then and had, just like they have now, a high level of motivation to turn around the economy, to improve it. Filling spaces was number one, because nobody wants to drive around their town and see 30% vacancy in this center and 52% in Bartlett Plaza at the time. And that was really a big priority. And along with that, of course, we were talking about attracting some new development. So what's happened since then? It's been a lot of years, of course. We've implemented some new programs. We've stepped up our marketing efforts. We've done some joint marketing with some other communities along the Elgin O'Hare Expressway, and it's translated into some success in terms of filling spaces. Going back now to 6 months ago or so in February when it was freezing out, and I do the annual economic indicators report, and some of you may remember that our vacancy rate's very low, around 5% or so for commercial, and even lower than that for industrial. So again, before I launch into these, I'm focusing on commercial sites tonight, because back then also our business parks still were not close to built out. Blue Heron on the west side of town only had maybe 2 buildings, and those were those traffic control buildings were the first 2. Now there's like 6 or 7 buildings. There's 4 or 5 in the works. I didn't even research how many new buildings there have been in Brewster Creek since 2016. Let's say there's been a dozen, but not only a dozen, but gigantic ones. 270,000 square feet, 400,000 square feet. The village has literally had millions and millions of square feet of industrial space built. However, here we are. We still have a lot of commercial sites in town. Some of them are extremely large, like the ones I'm going to start with, and then others are what we would commonly refer to as infill sites that are like a 3-acre corner surrounded by a subdivision. We're still working hard, even though trade shows haven't really happened in the last few years. We haven't traveled a lot, but we still reach out to developers, mostly regional developers at this point. Haven't really commiserated too much with too many nationals, but I'm going to go through. The other thing I want to say as a disclaimer is 2 disclaimers. This isn't every single site, development site in the town. These are the bigger ones. There's others out there, pocket sites, you know, here and there through the town. And then the last thing, as I was talking with Commissioner Perry before the meeting, that every one of these, I'm going to preface by saying we might be working on a specific development. That's not a guarantee that it will happen. There's lots of projects that wind their way all the way through the process and then never get built for whatever reason. None of us here know what's going to become of the economy in the next coming years, but this is kind of an overview, if you will. So one thing I'm going to start with is a site that myself, Scott, Paula, and others in the village, elected officials, have wanted to attract development to for a very, very long time. This is a village-owned property at the southwest corner of Route 59 and Lake. It was annexed into the village. Parts of it were annexed into the village years ago. I've mentioned frequently, I've been with the village now 17 years, and this site had been targeted basically for retail only for about the first 10 years that I was with the village. Following that, we began entertaining notions of various apartment developers. As a matter of fact, we spent over 3 years working with one particular apartment developer. I think all of you have been on the EDC long enough to have heard me sitting here talking about high-end apartments coming to this site, 208 units, 5-story building, 2 buildings adjoined by a pool and clubhouse. That obviously is not happening. So after that deal fell through, probably the better part of 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we began engaging again with Mr. LaQuercio, who you all know has relocated his Toyota dealership to Streamwood, and he's relocated a Jeep dealership over there. And we've had conversations and meetings with him over the years, and for a variety of reasons, things didn't previously work out. But at this point, I will share that that is the current plan for this property. We've been working a lot with him for the past year and a half, And the last thing we've been really pushing on, which is easier said than done, is obtaining a Class 7 property tax incentive, which the village board endorsed several months ago, but then has to wind its way through Cook County. And I can tell you, Paula and I have attended either 3 or 4 Cook County hearings on the matter, and it looks favorable at this point. They have to justify it, similar to a TIF, as a but-for argument, that it can't move forward without it. So what you see up here on the screen and in your packets is a rendering of 2 auto dealerships, Hyundai and Genesis, on the west property, which is the former RV dealership that he's purchased, Mr. LaQuercio. And then, kind of harder to see, but in your packet is the overall site plan where the 10-acre parcel owned by the village will be utilized for showcasing the vehicles. So that's a project that, like I said, was in the works for the better part of the year, through middle of 2020, through most of last year, but it's gone before the board now. So it's something that's been disclosed publicly, and we've engaged in a lot of negotiations and incentives for the car dealerships to come to town. That'll be obviously, when it goes forward, not if, our first car dealerships in the village. And the projected sales taxes on that are extremely high, along with, even keeping in mind that there would be a sales tax rebate. It's very likely to become the highest sales tax generator in the village. So that's over there.
Tony, question.
Hope to see moving forward by the end of this year.
So is he building, is the village own 10 acres there that he's building on?
Well, that would be where the vehicles are stored. I don't have a pointer, but I'm going to stand up. Right over here. This is the village-owned property. It's okay, Joey. The village-owned property, and that's where this is where the vehicles would be parked over here. The vehicles listed for sale. I'm not going to go through all the details of our 70-page agreement with Mr. LaQuercio, but it's vehicles for sale in Bartlett will be showcased there.
Is that 10 acres, Tony?
Plus or minus 10. We always call that a 10-acre. There's wetlands, but yeah, that's the land that the village owned, acquired as the result of a swap with a church about 20 years ago, preserving it for commercial development was the purpose of that land swap. It happened before I started with the village.
Do you have
It
an
was
idea
World
when
Overcomers Church
Do you have an
the
idea
village did a
when
land
he,
swap with, and
gonna
then they
actually
built
start
at
digging
Naperville
there?
Road. I'm sorry?
Do you have an idea when this is going to start? When he's going to
The
start?
plan is by the end of the year,
At the end of the year.
yeah.
So Tony, on the 2 parcels, one is going to be where the sales actually take place, and the other one is going to be like where the reserved cars will sit, so it's kind of like off lot and stuff like that?
That's
Okay,
correct.
Yeah, perfect.
It's a very long story. I can't go in, I could talk for hours about it, but, I mean, it's, he pursued some other properties as well. So this is the way the village was able to facilitate this, through working with him on land that the village owned.
I like it. It makes
Also
the lot look
through a
nicer.
sales tax rebate and the Class 7, which is our first one, I should add. We have a lot of Class 6s in the village. Those are for industrial developments. Class 7 is for commercial, and that's our first one. But we hope to have another one next year.
What falls in between those 2 parcels? Is that Moretti's?
Moretti's, yes. And there's another parcel that's owned by a religious institution. We used to call it the Martino property. There's another 9.7-acre property in between. So I'm going to move on because we have other properties in town. This is the big one, This is the Crown Development Site. It's over 100 acres. Commissioner Perry usually asks me about it, most meetings, to see what's happening over there. It's a large undeveloped piece that's mostly pursued by home builders, but it's such a large piece that I have to specify that the home builders that we engage with there are typically the national home builders whose stock trades, in the Fortune 50 or so. They're the big ones. So there was another home builder, I was telling you all last year, that was pursuing it, and then they ultimately backed off, but there's a different one now. You may have heard that the Crown Development Group they're going through the entitlement process themselves. So you probably have heard about that. It's hit the papers lately. They've come before the village board. What you have in your packet and what you have before you is literally, it's a concept plan, but then they took it a step further in going through the subdivision process. So I'd need to put my cheaters on to see the numbers. 231 units, 81 single-family homes, 60 active adult ranch homes, and 90 active adult duplexes. On the corner, now that I have this, the corner is about 6 acres of commercial. Again, it's not all usable. That doesn't mean there's going to be 6 acres of development there. I think from the few discussions I've had with their commercial division, it's more like 3.5 to 4 with 2 acres of detention. So we're looking at probably a mixture of like a single tenant building and maybe a strip center, or possibly 2 or 3 single tenant buildings. It hasn't been determined, but I have just recently begun engaging with their commercial division, like recently, like as in last month. So we're going to do our best to attract quality commercial development to that. And as I put in my memo, something that would be complementary to the new subdivision over there. So we'll probably say no to more potential developments there than yes, and make sure that we get something that fits in real well over there, like restaurants or neighborhood type uses. It's a high-profile corridor. It is in Cook County, but that's going to be a very desirable site when these homes start getting built. So that's been our biggest development site, again, for the longest time, since many of you have been in the town. It hasn't been developed, and we hope to see some action on it. Before I go to the next site, are there any questions or comments on that one? Okay. The Heidner property is another one of these that I've spoken of frequently. This is the northwest corner of 59 and Chick. And we finally have something, again, on the board, not just being talked about, but somebody who's submitting plans. It's a family that the village has worked with before. Some of you may remember the Burger King that was on Lake Street, just right next to Oakfield Center over there. And must be 10 years ago at this point, the Rajabalis bought it. They're very successful Dunkin' Donuts franchisees. I think at that point they told me they owned, it was more than a dozen of them. And so they're a frequent partner of Mr. Heidner, who's owned that lot for many years. And even as we've sent other people, potential users to the site, he's always told us that he figured a Dunkin' Donuts would be coming over there. And so they've come to the point where they've submitted their plans also, and you'll be hearing about that winding its way through. So we're going to have another Dunkin' Donuts in town. And just one little tidbit I'll tell you, even though we haven't been to the ICSC shows for a few years, the International Council of Shopping Centers, at one point in time, the director of real estate for Dunkin' Donuts was a Bartlett resident. So I would speak with him frequently. And he always told me that Dunkin' Donuts wanted to have one unit for every 10,000 residents. So this would be our fourth one for 40,000 residents when you say another Dunkin' Donuts. So we've got the one near 59 in Stearns. We've got the one on Lake Street. We've got the one a few years ago that the gas station owner at County Farm in Stearns put in. So this will be the fourth one. And there's room for a little more development at that corner as well. But what you probably will see next year is or sooner hopefully, is a Dunkin' Donuts getting built on that corner. Speaking of northwest corner of County Farm in Stearns, there's a 4.6 acre commercial site that surrounds the gas station over there. And that's been purchased now by another developer we're working with, another village resident, and somebody who already owns the BP gas station at that corner and owns the other BP gas station at 59 in Stearns. So his name is Harshal Patel, and I've been working with him for a while. This one hasn't started going through the process, so to speak, but this is another one of these sites that we've talked about for years that's been targeted for commercial development. And his plans, I mean, we've talked about various tenants that he envisions there, tenants that he's either friends with or works with in other communities. And the best way I could describe it is it'll probably be a neighborhood type of center. I don't want to call it typical strip center, but you'll see those types of uses in there, some food uses, potentially a daycare facility. West side of Route 59, I don't have a picture of this one, but this is a 10-acre parcel that's in between Army Trail Road and Schick. This is a site that many years ago, a very high-end shopping center was approved but never built, right before the recession with the capital R back in 2008. This site's been gone through a few different owners since then, and most recently was purchased by a company that owns and operates senior living facilities, and that's their plan for that site. Clover Communities, their concept is for a 119-unit market rate senior independent living facility on that site. And, you know, if and when that one moves forward, I'll most likely bring some concept of it to show you. It's something that's been in the works for a very long time. I think they bought it at least 3 or 4 years ago. They came before the board once for a concept plan, and they got some feedback. They kind of sat on it for a while, and they're coming back again with some revised plans. Like I said, planning a 3-story building with mostly 2-bedroom units. Next site, Southwind Business Park site. This is exciting. As you all know, residents on the far west side of town for years have wanted some commercial development out in their neck of the woods. And, you know, the first commercial development there was the True North station, which is, a fuel station with a convenience store over there. But there's a lot of homes being built. As a matter of fact, over 300 of them are being built, completed on the west side of the town, of street, Route 25, which is in South Elgin. Also in the Bartlett side, Bartlett Point West is the newest subdivision out in that direction. And it just so happens that one of the residents in Bartlett Point West is a developer of strip centers and owner of convenience stores. And he's somebody I've been meeting with very frequently, probably every week now for the last 5 or 6 weeks. And, you know, he appears to be moving forward for it. As I said earlier in the meeting, I'm not guaranteeing at any point in time pinpointing a month or something this will be built, but it's something where we sit and have meetings, and he's hired an architect. He closed on the property, so he owns it. So that, of course, dramatically increases the likelihood of moving forward with a project on that site. And like I said, I just kind of went through some of the bigger sites for about the last 25 minutes or so. If there's any questions about them, I'd be glad to answer. I just wanted to, instead of driving you around in a shuttle bus for 2 hours showing you all these sites, I figured I would just kind of breeze through them. And I'm assuming you all know and have seen most of these sites. I know you've seen them sitting there and wondering what's going to become of this particular corner. Bartlett has, most of the land mass is taken up by residential. Our business parks have been extremely successful. I think about 2 to 3% of the land in the village is zoned commercial. So we obviously want to maximize every remaining development site that we have. So, any questions on this site or any of them that I went over, or a different site perhaps?
So on your map, Tony, you have 2 in green that you're talking about now that are gonna build something on the green areas. The others, are there 3 more lots available in that area there?
There's 2 available, but I've been sending a lot of people to them. When I start talking about industrial, I was mostly talking about commercial tonight, but the demand for industrial space remains very high, and we're close to built out in Brewster Creek Business Park. And so, yes, as of a month ago, this schematic that you see up here was sent to me by the landowner, Dean Kelly, because a lot of times I'm asking him to update it, because these are what you would consider smaller sites for industrial. 2 acres, 1.6, 2.8. Those are very small. Those are for 50, 60,000 square foot buildings. Some of the projects that we talk about in Brewster Creek, to be honest, they would take up more than that entire business park. McKesson, the building alone is larger than that. So the answer to that is those 2 sites were available as of after the last EDC meeting or in early July. That's what Dean Kelly sent me, because I had one person looking for a place to put a 50,000 square foot building and another person for like a 60-ish thousand. So I send them these sites, and to be honest, they would have to, for the bigger building, was looking at maybe combining that 2.2 with the 1.6, because that makes a nicer site. But like I said, the buildings out there, you can see there's a Parkland Academy. Bluff City has its own building there. Those tend to be smaller buildings out there. So the one that I'm talking about, where the developer is looking at building a strip retail center, is this 2.9 acre site just east of that new Shell station. I suspect you're going to see something move forward there in the next few months. You'll start hearing about it. Any other questions?
Yeah, for the Crown property, pardon my ignorance here, but what's the definition of active adult ranch, active adult duplex?
Sorry, what's the definition of it?
Yeah, what is that? Is that a
Great
euphemism, or is
question.
that a?
I want to say, I don't know, but what they are smaller single-story ranch houses that are actually on smaller lots.
Yes.
So I think the attraction to those for somebody who, I'm getting to that point soon where there's not a lot of property maintenance involved. And active adults just kind of means some of it will be age restricted.
Yeah, that leads into, I guess, my next question, because I saw the next one, another development site is for, elderly care, it looks like, correct?
Yes, oh yeah, we went back to that one on the 10-acre site.
Considering Bartlett has a bit of an aging problem, I believe our demographics keep getting older, is that correct?
Yes.
So, is this a natural thing in your experience, where we're building and then somebody like me eventually is gonna move into that and younger people are gonna replace? Or is there any concern here for that trend just to continue and continue, and we're such a
That's
hotspot
another
for this?
great question. I would say no to the last question about the concern about it. Before they can move forward, one of the things that causes some of these projects to take so long, they have to obtain a certificate of need from the state. So that's an application process where they have to prove that there's a need for that. I can tell you kind of, just from my experience, I've had so many calls from so many senior living developers over the years. They've slowed down, but it used to be that I would get at least one every month. So at least 12 a year, maybe 15 a year, just scouring the area for locations. And I don't mean just Bartlett specifically. Some of these people ended up building in Streamwood, and some of them ended up, one of them did build on Streamwood, I know. Another one's building in Hanover Park. So it's kind of a population trend around here in general, maybe a little less specific to Bartlett. But then to answer your earlier question, yes. So Bartlett residents who want to age in place and want to sell a large home with high maintenance costs and, let's say, high taxes and some of those other things where maybe they no longer need a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom house. I mean, this will attract some of those residents. Also, what you were asking about at the Crown property will attract other of those residents. And when we talk about trying to attract, let's say, some younger demographics, that's one of the things we talk about when we meet with Mr. Rafidia for the residences at Bartlett Station, the apartment building that he still plans to build on Railroad Avenue, just down the block there. So we strive village-wide to have a good selection of housing options for people, all the way from like a 1-bedroom apartment all the way to a 6 or 7-bedroom house. So that's a difficult question to ask and answer. I think it's a trend in the area. And I can tell you for sure, senior housing developers, they go through a lot of due diligence and the state certification before they can come to a village and apply. So I would venture to say that however many units they build there will probably be filled within a year, probably maybe even before they finish building it. There is definitely a need.
I would think so too, just from a city planning perspective, you're not concerned about, I guess, it being filled from out-of-town residents, and then our aging demographic continues, or
Well, from what I've heard people.
becomes
talk
skewed,
about-
yes,
yeah.
there we go.
Well, I would say at the board level, I haven't heard any. I mean, from the economic development perspective, I'm not concerned with that. I don't think our planning staff is. I think ultimately it would be before the village board, how they feel about it. I know at some point, the developer was looking to attract some type of commercial component to it as well. And actually, when they came before the board for their concept plan, the board was very skeptical of that and really, I think, by my recollection, expressed their thoughts that it should be, limited to the senior living facility, but done, very well. I didn't put the renderings of it, but I've looked at the renderings. It's very attractive. It's going to be built, to the highest, most modern standards. So I say, this is another one I say, if it gets built, it's something that I think will fit in really well in the area. And again, from the economic development perspective, let's all hope that they eat at the Culvers and go to the shopping centers along Army Trail Road, and that these become, customers of Bartlett businesses. They don't put a strain on the school system, these senior facilities, so the schools typically like them. And they're good neighbors. When I, again, started here a long time ago, before Claire Oaks got built and before Victory Center got built, and those just happened to both get built at the same time in 2007, and there hasn't been any senior facility built since then. And I can tell you those both filled immediately. The 208 units at Victory Center were filled before they finished building it.
Yeah, I think this type of housing really fits a specific niche of people just about my age and slightly above me that no longer want the big house that they thought they wanted. They don't need it anymore. You still want to have a house, but you don't want to have the big house, and you want to be traveling a lot. When I go into like a lot of my leisure things and a lot of my Facebook groups and about my retirement groups, it's all about that. Get rid of the big house, go into an active community. You're going to be there part of the time, so you're close to your kids. I've had a lot of people from the chamber when they were looking at the stations, when Raffinia was building those, saying, this is perfect. My mother would like to live there because we're here, So I think it's really kind of that thing of getting family close, but not having them, move into your house like how it used to be.
I have no doubt that they'll all sell.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for my parents as well, so it fits a deed. I was just curious if there was, from, something I don't understand, a concern on city planning, but.
It's a valid.
How is Site E going, by the way, as long as
Sorry?
how is the Site E? Was that what it is?
Site E
Yeah.
is the one, yes. It's been delayed, but we've met recently with Mr. Raffidia and still plans on moving forward in the next few months. There've been a lot of reasons with supply chain issues and material costs and all those things that you hear so often about. Again, economic forces greater than things that we can control in the village, but it's still something that we meet about and plan for and to move forward on soon. Yeah, that'll be a big project you'll see, hopefully soon.
From a sale tax revenue point of view, the people that were going to build that nice apartment building that you talked about on Lake Street, I think that was something that probably was a good thing they didn't build, because Hyundai generates a whole bunch of taxes for Bartlett rather than putting up a rental building.
That's a good point. It's true. But I want to say that when we were working with the apartment project, at that point, that was a product that didn't exist in Bartlett. Of course, it's not getting built, so it's all conjecture, but the proposed rents on that were going to be the highest in the village. It was truly going to be a very high-end rental community. So, I don't want to say that, we're thrilled beyond belief to get auto dealerships, of course. But I don't think, in that case, it was still a good project that we were working on. It was called Gateway. Spent over 3 years working on it, and to the point where, there were discussions about interior finishes and the windows and all that. So, it didn't happen. But just like I would say generally about any of these sites, if one of these projects doesn't go forward, at some point some other project will go forward. And so that apartment project didn't go forward, but then it worked out for the best, because then we had the opportunity to be able to attract these auto dealerships where they weren't able to get all the parking field that they needed without working with the village. And so it just so happened, this project was moving forward, needing more parking, right at the time our apartment project was not moving forward. So you're right, maybe it was fortuitous that that apartment project didn't happen.
I don't know, we can say if it's good or bad, just because when we go through the statistics of the community, one of the things that we had talked about previously was the fact that because of our density numbers, we can't attract things like the Whole Foods, the Mariano's, also education level. So if you're bringing in a higher, level apartment building, maybe you're attracting a different economic stature, a different education stature, and now you're starting to build on those density numbers. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, too.
Right. That's a good point. Those would build up some of those younger demographics. Well,
Right.
they say double income, no kids are some of them, and then others are retirees. There's people who just use their apartments for half the year or quarter of the year. I mean, it attracts a wide variety of people, but just by the price of what that project was going to be, over $50 million, I mean, it was going to be a pretty high rent type of project.
Right.
Well, thank you for putting that together, Tony. It was a lot of good information. Does anyone have anything further on it before we move on? Any other questions for Tony?
I believe was there one more site, the Devon and Prospect site?
You know what, we didn't have it on there, but I'll comment quickly. Devon and Prospect is about 3 acres. It's in the memo, it's 3.8 acres. It's surrounded by a neighborhood, which makes it a little bit more challenging. And the owner of it, I spoke with 2 weeks ago, partly in preparation of this, and partly because there was a particular business looking for sites that we thought would be a good fit over there. And the site itself is owned by a really large developer based out of Oak Brook. So that's the reason you don't see a for sale sign in front of it, because he's not, I suggested that he hire a broker and list it again. It's been listed before through commercial brokers, but at this point, he's basically working it himself or whoever I send to him, which I will share was a daycare facility looking at it.
And then is there any activity for a grocery store, or is that kind of on the back burner for the time being?
It's something that we're always working on.
Going?
Got to work on those density numbers.
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is yes. It's always the number one priority of a new business for the mayor and the board. It's always something that Scott and I are driving around to present ourselves in various sites. And, it's something that is still a high priority. And I think, we're doing whatever we can to bring one to town.
Anyone else? All right, Tony, let's talk about the business survey.
Great, I'm going to turn this over to my friend and colleague, Joey D.
Thank you. So a key component of the village's strategic planning process is obtaining some feedback. As many of you have seen, if you've seen on Facebook or in the Bartlett, we are launching a new resident survey right now, looking to get some feedback from residents. I've also dropped some postcards up at the dais for you to share with friends and family who live in town. But also, residents aren't the only valuable voice that staff needs to hear from. A business community survey can provide that much-needed additional input from a business perspective and in concert with resident input. The resident in this survey, the results of the survey will be a key part of our strategic planning process, helping the village board set their priorities for the future. And we're recommending the use of the survey that we've attached. To create the survey, we surveyed some other municipalities in the area, and going through some of the surveys they've done in the past, kind of took some pieces we liked, took some things we wanted to add ourselves, and put this together. We're going to be implementing this throughout a variety of different ways. Our staff, if anybody's taken the resident survey, we're going to be doing that the same way. Our GIS and IT staff have built that survey using our ArcGIS software, which is included in what, you know, the village is already paying for at no extra cost. So the analytics of the survey are going to be captured with that software, and it will automatically put that all into, you know, an Excel file that we can take and start the analysis on. So we're going to be looking for trends based on where businesses are located, the size of the business, the nature of the business, and other key demographics to try to understand what our businesses' needs are or are not being met. The survey has been included in the packet if you have any questions.
How is the survey going out to the businesses? Are they going to have a QR code as well, or?
Yeah, so we're thinking about making a similar card, similar to what you have up there, but actually mailing that to all of our businesses, and then also using our e-blast system to let them know. And we're hoping to use some of the chamber's contacts as well to reach out to them. So we'll be going at it from many different angles, and even picking up the phone and, you know, and calling them just to try to get some input.
Do you have a digital version of the residential one that we could share on social media?
Yeah, so it is on it's on our. We recently posted something last week, but that QR code on the postcard takes you right to the digital version. Within just 1 week of launching the resident survey, we've already gotten about 300 responses so far. So pretty good start.
Were most of those after National Night Out? Because there was quite a presence for those for National Night Out.
Yeah, so the next morning, we saw a bunch fall in, so from all the postcards that were being passed out there. So, and then we're also, I spent last Thursday, Friday, and then this morning, stuffing some envelopes. So we took everybody who's on our senior email list, or our senior water bill discount list, and we're going to be mailing to all of our seniors as well a paper copy that they can fill out and bring back, and or also fill out online. So.
Are you going to reach out, like maybe to Hanover Township to have some there for their senior center, also for Bartlett residents who go into the township?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we've reached out to them, or we've reached out to the Park District too about, you know, potentially sharing some stuff. The only thing we want to be careful of is confusion of services, where you know, we wouldn't want somebody at the Park District, you know, picking up a postcard and thinking they're filling something out about them. So we're going to be working with them to make sure that the people understand the separation of services there. We've actually included in the resident survey at the very beginning, we kind of outlined all the different services provided by different taxing bodies to help, you know, outline what it is the village does, because, you know, there's a lot of people just, you know, they just expect the services to be done, and, you know, and they don't necessarily know exactly where those services are coming from at all times.
Well, I will say, seeing them being handed out at National Night Out, you know, whenever we're handing out things at National Night Out, you always kind of monitor the grounds and the trash to see where your handouts have gone, and they were not in the trash or on the ground, so they were really going home, so
Perfect.
that was nice.
No, I think this is a good idea, and it's, from the two I've read, it's very well done. So, thank you. Congratulations, it's good.
How long are you planning on leaving it open?
So in the resident one, we launched August 1st, and we're going to be running through October 15th. And for the business one, we're thinking about on September 1st launch, and then kind of running through close to Thanksgiving, just to kind of stagger them, because we're going to have a lot of results to go through on each one, so kind of spacing them out a little bit and giving us time to promote each one individually.
Will they look differently so that?
Yes. Yeah, it'll probably be a similar template, but yeah, using a different, for the postcard at least, you know, different image and.
They won't think they already filled it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, we're hoping to get a majority of those responses from that, from our email list, just, you know, hopefully, you know, you can click it right there while you've got your email open. You know, we timed out the responses on, you know, pretending to take it, and it seems like it should be less than 10 minutes on this one, so, you know, not too much of a burden, but on, you know, you're always walking that fine line of, you know, getting enough information that you can find useful, but also making sure you're holding people's attention as long as possible to get them filled out. So,
Percentage of response are you looking to get?
I'm sorry?
What's the percentage of response you're looking to get from the businesses?
Yeah, so a good survey response is around, that 20 to 30% range. But with our business community and the responses we get to our email blasts on a regular basis, I think we've got a chance of being a lot higher than that on this one. Just because, and it is a smaller sample, and we do communicate with a lot of our businesses on a regular basis, so we are hoping to be well over that. So
Would you be, considering the time frame that the business survey is going out, you said through Thanksgiving roughly, maybe add a question, would they be interested in participating in a small business Saturday or
that is
marketing?
a very good point. Yeah,
Really nice one.
yeah,
That was good.
yeah. We can take a look at adding something like that. Commissioner Gorski, you had a question?
I was going to say, I'm just making a recommendation, as you reach out to the seniors, you said you're going to have a separate mailing for that?
Yes.
That you would increase the font size, because this
Oh,
is
yeah.
a little bit tight.
Yeah. So the post, we have a full letter going out to, a letter, in normal sized font, and then a full paper survey for them.
Absolutely.
I second that motion.
Joey, was there any thought about including the chamber in here, such as, are you a chamber member? Have you considered chamber membership? Anything that points to that part of the business community?
Yeah, we could add something like that, yeah.
Okay. We'd appreciate that on
Yeah.
the chamber.
And then when we do have those results, we would come back and share those with the EDC as well.
Take my survey. All right, any questions on the business survey? And then make sure you do take these home and share them with, friends and relatives. We have had several of them in the bank, and we've had people take them, so I'm going to add these to my stack. So if anyone doesn't have a use for theirs, I'd be happy to take them to the bank.
And there's also 2 stacks on the table outside too. I'd be happy to replenish them in the morning if they're gone.
We could pass these out at our events, too, chamber events.
All right, let's move on to new business.
Don't really have any on the agenda tonight. I just want to mention, and some of you could speak to it better than I could, about Bartlett's first Oktoberfest coming up soon.
We might be able to.
I don't know if Ann or Kirsten or somebody who's involved with it would love to
Yes.
to mention that.
So we kicked off the Oktoberfest. We are doing it, the Bartlett Chamber is doing it with the Rotary and the Lions Club. So the 3 not-for-profits are coming together to host an Oktoberfest in Leisburg Park on September 30th and October 1st. It's going to be food, obviously beer, dancing, music. Our kids' activities are continuing to grow on Saturday afternoon. We've got quite a bit planned. There's vendors. We do have an Oktoberfest website, and we are on Facebook. So if you haven't followed us on Facebook or checked it out, please do. It's a very active Oktoberfest site. There's posts almost every single day, so if anyone would like them or share them, that would be great. Our full lineup of bands is there. But we are progressing nicely with the event. It is a lot of work, so it's great that 3 groups came together to do it, because it takes 3 groups to host a festival. So we've just been promoting it. We do have flyers. If anyone's interested, we can get little quarter sheets flyers to go anywhere in town, but really the biggest thing is liking us on social media. We were also, that's why we were looking in the trash, because we wanted to make sure our Oktoberfest flyers weren't landing on the garbage, and they weren't. People are
going to be excited about it. Have one right here in town.
It's just, between the 2 of us, we passed out at least 500 or more flyers, and no one seemed to know about it, so it's just scary that we're doing so much work, and it's going to be such a nice event that we just really want to get the word out.
Yeah, it's on the front page of the Bartlett
Yes, thank you very much. That was
today.
a pleasant surprise when we saw the draft of it, that we were on it. I think, Rotary, I'll speak for Rotary and Lions Club on behalf of the chamber, that we were all pleasantly surprised that we were on the cover, and then I think we also kind of went, oh, wow. Do we have enough beer? Do we have enough bathrooms?
That's just, it was just.
Will they
trying to
like the
figure
music?
out how much to get of everything, and it's funny because as walking around National Night Out and passing them out and talking talking to people, I start out with saying that we have live music and we've got beer. And they all said, oh, you had me at beer. So I finally switched it, so we have beer. And we have live music. And it was surprising how many people were all about the beer. The rest of it,
I am wondering if More Brewing's going to participate somehow.
We're working with More Brewing on it as well, so the committee's working with More, and Kevin is going to be doing the tapping of the golden keg Friday at 5 o'clock, so we're going to have a whole, German ceremony where we go ahead and tap the golden keg, and
More Brewery is our sponsor for the Golden Keg.
Are there tables and tents? Or what's this?
there's one large tent, a 30 by 80, there's going to be some tables, but we're hoping, like any event, that people will bring some of their chairs with them to sit and everything. This being a first-time thing, we really don't want to stock it with all the tables and chairs. Porta potties and trash and things like that are very, very expensive. Well, yeah, there'll be some, it's just not going to be huge, I'd say, bring a chair.
Having been to Oktoberfest 3 times in Germany, you can actually
We're a little
reserve the tables.
Yeah.
So you can make some money in advance by reserving a
They
table.
do them in shifts, so you get like
Yeah.
a 2 to 4
Yeah.
hour window, and then they move in the next.
And those are all things that, we want to incorporate in our future plan of it. I think this year is like launch it, survive it, and then things like that are definitely going to be things that we are going to need to incorporate in it. And we'll be looking for that type of feedback and everything coming back to it. And obviously, looking for help and volunteers and, there's more to do at Oktoberfest than pour beer.
Yeah, so everybody wants to pour beer. One of the things that I'm just really struggling with is, I had hoped to find maybe like a small RV or conversion van or something that we could just have a place that we could lock tickets and money up, a place to go where we could count deposits and whatnot out of sight. And I'm really struggling with that. I've called some RV places.
Have you touched base with the 4th of July committee? Do you know anybody on the 4th of July?
Yeah, we've been working with the 4th of July
Because they
committee.
usually get a trailer.
Yeah, I think it's one of the members is what they had said, who has it.
So give them a couple beer tickets, tell them you want to borrow, it's just for you guys.
Yeah, so far I'm batting zero.
No, nobody was, but if you know anyone who has an RV that would be willing to help us.
Conversion, but they have some of those conversion vans that have a little table, and we don't need a lot of space, there's only gonna be a couple people in there.
And we're proud, parking is not going to be an issue. We're proud that we're working with Hanover Township. They are giving us their buses, so we're going to be having the buses moving people around as well. So that's going to be a great help, so. Businesses in the streets of Bartlett are happy about it, because obviously once it ends, people will be going over there. The food we have is going to be very limited, so people will run across and get stuff as well, which is going to be a good support, so.
But we do have hamburgers, hot dogs,
Bratwurst.
brats, corn.
Like I said, we're starting very basic. We just, we can't, these are 3 not-for-profits who don't have money as it is. And the seed money that we put up is very scary to some people, that we took money and put it into this group. So we're just trying to start small and then go from there.
Would the RV people want to advertise one at the, do we have anybody, any contact?
They've already moved out of
They're
town.
That
out.
was my first
Yeah.
thought, and then
Yeah.
I was all excited, and they said, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
come on, and then I tried the ones in Carroll Street.
They're real good guys, and I can't speak for them, but, that would have been a natural
That's
to
my thought,
go
that they
to
could come
them.
and put a sign up, we'll make you a sponsor, just come and park it on Friday and pick it up on Sunday, and easy peasy, but Hometown RV said, yeah, we'll do that for about $1,000 is what
Yeah.
it came down to. So it's like, okay, we need a plan B.
I just wanted to add as well, with all the talks about Oktoberfest, not to rush summer away, but staff will be meeting in the next week or so with all the different taxing bodies and kicking off Merry and Bright for this year to start getting our planning for that, and reaching out to everybody for the Cocoa Crawl. So I believe we're meeting on the 18th to get started, and we'll be kicking off all those conversations to get our winter events in if summer hasn't gone by fast enough.
Yeah, no kidding. That's all we had in new business. Anyone else? All right, well, looks like we're at that spot where there's nothing else on the agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your time tonight, everyone.